On the eve of Holy Week in 1858, the streets of New Orleans whispered with hymns of redemption. Yet inside one creaking wooden house, redemption had no place. Beneath the shadow of gas lamps and the distant toll of church bells, something unspeakable was about to unfold. A burial was being prepared, yet no graveyard soil had been turned, and no priest had been summoned. Instead, a girl named Mary, only 15, was about to bury something far more precious than flesh and bone. She was about to bury her innocence. The sound of chains rattled faintly from the slave quarters. The air reeked of spilled whiskey and candle wax. Somewhere inside, a door slammed, followed by the muffled sound of a girl's cry, quickly silenced. The city outside moved as if in celebration, oblivious to the horror that crept closer with every passing second taught by dawn. Whispers of blood and betrayal would stain the French Quarter, and within days the people of New Orleans would speak of Mary not as a child, but as the cursed name at the center of a massacre too haunting to forget. But what happened inside that home on Holy Week? And how could a single night of violence echo across an entire city's conscience? New Orleans, 1858, a city of contradictions. Catholic devotion and carnival debauchery. Mansions glittering with chandeliers while slave coffles shuffled through its markets. Here, the French Quarter smelled of sugar, sweat, and iron. It was the crown jewel of the South, but its beauty was built on the backs of the enslaved. Among the enslaved was Mary, barely a woman, born to a mother who had been sold. 3 times before she reached 20, Mary's life had been measured in coin and cruelty. Raised under the thumb of the Dupree family, one of the city's most notorious slaveholding dynasties, dot by outward appearance. The Duprees were respected parish donors, hosts of elaborate Holy Week feasts, patrons of the cathedral. Yet inside their home, the story was different. Mary's life was not her own. She scrubbed marble floors until her knuckles bled, served at tables where she was never seen, and endured punishments designed not just to wound but to humiliate. But beneath the crushing weight of slavery, Mary held on to fragments of herself, an old hymn her mother had taught her. Scraps of faith whispered in the night, and still there was something else. A tension in the household, like storm clouds building. Whispers passed among the enslaved. Mistress Dupree's jealousy of Mary's beauty, Master Dupree's growing attention to the young girl. Threats made in the kitchen, overheard by watchful ears. It was a dangerous triangle, one that could only end in ruin. And as the bells of Holy Week rang across New Orleans, the first cracks in silence began to split open. The days leading up to Holy Thursday thickened with unease. Mistress Dupree's eyes lingered on Mary too long, venom dripping in each look. She accused Mary of being too slow, too proud, too bold. Punishments multiplied: slaps, locked doors, denial of food at night. Mary lay awake in the cramped slave quarters, listening. She heard footsteps pacing the upstairs halls. She heard the clink of a glass being set down. Then she heard doors creak open. One night, she felt a hand grip her wrist in the dark. The master's whisper was heavy with whiskey. She pulled away, but resistance only deepened the cruelty. The walls of the house seemed to close in, trapping her with a terror she could not name aloud. And then came the breaking point. On Good Friday, Mistress Dupree struck Mary in front of the household staff, accusing her of tempting her husband, calling her cursed. Mary fell to the ground, her cheek burning, her pride shattered. In that moment, every humiliation, every stolen choice, every bruise became tender. Whispers of rebellion grew sharper in the quarters. An axe was heard being sharpened against stone. A rope quietly braided. A kitchen knife slipped beneath a garment. No one spoke openly. No one dared. But the silence of the house was different now. It was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence before a storm. By Saturday night, As families filled the cathedral for the Easter Vigil, the Dupree home was poised to explode. What happened behind those walls would shake New Orleans, and the story would stain the city's conscience forever. It began with a scream. In the dead of night, the Dupree household erupted. Doors burst open, feet pounded down wooden halls. A lantern crashed to the floor, flames licking across the boards. Mistress Dupree was the first to fall, slashed across the throat with a kitchen blade. Her body crumpled near the parlor as the sound of fire roared louder. The master staggered, drunk, gripping for his pistol, but hands grabbed him, many hands. He was dragged into the yard where the shadows of enslaved men loomed against the moonlight. His pleas were swallowed by the night as the axe came down, again and again, and at the center of it all stood Mary, no longer the girl silenced in the dark, no longer the child on her knees. She stood upright, blood on her dress, the firelight reflecting in her eyes. The Dupree estate burned that night, flames devouring its grandeur. Neighbors rushed with buckets of water, but it was too late. By dawn, the mansion was nothing but embers, and in those ashes lay the bodies of the masters who had believed themselves untouchable. New Orleans awoke not to bells of resurrection, but to the whispers of massacre. The aftermath was swift, brutal, and merciless. The Dupree Rebellion, as it came to be called, sent shockwaves through the city. Patrols scoured the French Quarter. Dozens of enslaved people were rounded up, accused of complicity, whether guilty or not. Mary herself disappeared into rumor. Some said she was hanged publicly, her body left as a warning. Others whispered she was smuggled upriver, hidden by free black families until she vanished into the north. Her name became both feared and revered: Mary the Child, Mary the Cursed, Mary the Avenger. For the white elite of New Orleans, the massacre was proof of their deepest fears, that the enslaved, if pushed to breaking, would rise in fire and blood. For the enslaved, it was proof of something else, that resistance was possible, even at unimaginable cost. History buried Mary in silence, her story reduced to footnotes and half-remembered whispers. But the night of the Holy Week Massacre still lingers, not in books, but in the collective conscience of a city built on chains. And so we are left with a haunting question: was Mary's act a desperate cry for freedom, or the opening shot in a war no one dared to name?